Chosen one, this is about you, and you felt that before I even said it. That pause in your scrolling, that sudden stillness in your chest, that quiet pull you couldn't explain, that was not random. Stop for a moment. Do not brush this off. You are not here by accident, and this is not just another video passing through your feed. This is a God's message, reaching you in precise divine alignment, and if you stay with me, you are going to understand why your life has felt different lately. This video is about your divine calling, the recent divine upgrade that has already begun inside you, and the activation of the 144,000 chosen ones during this powerful spiritual shift. It will explain the pressure you've been feeling, the clarity that's been increasing, the separation that's been happening, and the strange sense that something unseen is moving around you. If your thoughts have sharpened, if your tolerance for chaos has decreased, if you've felt set apart without knowing why, this is not coincidence. It is activation. Something has shifted in the spiritual realm. Something has been released, and you are feeling the evidence in your emotions, in your discernment, in your sudden desire for alignment over approval. This is not hype. This is confirmation of a spiritual awakening unfolding in real time. The reason this feels personal is because it is personal. The reason it feels urgent is because timing matters. You may have tried to ignore the changes. You may have questioned yourself. You may have wondered if you were overthinking. But what if the restlessness was refinement? What if the isolation was preparation? What if the clarity was elevation? What if this moment is the explanation you have been waiting for? Do not scroll away from this, because once you understand what this shift truly means, you will never see your recent struggles the same way again. Stay with me, because this message will either confirm what your spirit already knows or awaken something you can no longer deny. If you feel aligned with this spiritual awakening, comment 777, not as superstition, not as performance, but as confirmation, because the moment you acknowledge alignment, you step deeper into it. Chosen one, the atmosphere has changed. The pressure you have been feeling is not random stress. The separation you have experienced is not social coincidence. The inner stirring, the restlessness, the heightened awareness, that is the spiritual shift already in motion. The 144,000 chosen ones are being recalibrated, elevated, strengthened, positioned. This divine upgrade is not about money. It is not about status. It is not about applause. It is about capacity. Your spirit has been stretched because your assignment is expanding. You have felt more sensitive lately, more discerning, less tolerant of confusion and chaos. That is not weakness. That is refinement. There is urgency in this message, but there is no panic. When God moves, He does not shout in fear. He speaks with authority, and this God's message carries that authority. You were called before you were comfortable. You were chosen before you were confident. And now, the spiritual awakening that has been unfolding quietly is accelerating. The divine calling on your life is not small. That is why resistance has been strong. The war is real. Not a physical war, but a spiritual one. A battle for focus. A battle for purity. A battle for identity. The enemy does not fight what is ordinary. It fights what is necessary. And your light is necessary. The 144,000 chosen ones are not being activated for ego. They are being activated for stabilization. In a world shaking with confusion, clarity must rise. In a culture addicted to distraction, discipline must rise. In an atmosphere thick with fear, faith must rise. And you, chosen one, are part of that rising. This is why you have felt different. Conversations that once entertained you now exhaust you. Environments that once felt normal now feel heavy. You are not becoming antisocial, you are becoming aligned. The spiritual shift has begun, and alignment always requires separation before elevation. You were not overlooked, you were prepared. Every delay trained you. Every rejection strengthened you. Every lonely season sharpened your hearing. You thought you were being isolated, but you were being initiated. The divine upgrade does not arrive with noise. It arrives with inner knowing. Check your spirit. Be honest. Have you felt a new level of calm in the middle of chaos? Have you noticed old fears losing their grip? Have you sensed that something unseen is guiding you more clearly than before? That is not imagination. That is activation. This God's message is circling back to the truth you already sensed. You are not crazy. You are not dramatic. You are not lost. You are called. The divine calling has always been on you, but now it is intensifying. The spiritual awakening is no longer subtle. It is undeniable. The war is real. Darkness does not retreat quietly, but neither does light. And your light is not optional. It is necessary. The world does not need another echo of confusion. It needs grounded, awakened, disciplined, chosen ones who understand their assignment. If you have been feeling different lately, this is why. This is a message from God. You are not imagining this shift. You were called. The resistance was proof. The pressure was preparation. The stretching was strengthening. And the divine upgrade is already in effect. If this touched your soul, comment 111. Because you know it. You were called. What the divine upgrade actually means. Chosen one. Let us define this clearly so there is no confusion. A divine upgrade is not external success. It is not a sudden increase in money, followers, recognition, or applause. It is not a public platform or visible promotion. A divine upgrade is an internal spiritual elevation that changes how you think, how you feel, how you respond, and how you see. It begins where no one else can see it, but its effects eventually touch everything. When the 4,000 chosen ones receive a divine upgrade, the shift starts in the nervous system. What once triggered panic now produces pause. What once caused anxiety now meets discernment. Your body itself begins to recalibrate. You may have noticed that you no longer react the same way to pressure. Situations that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. This is not emotional numbness. This is regulation. Heaven does not increase your assignment without increasing your capacity. Old fears begin to lose authority. They may still whisper, but they no longer command you. The fear of rejection weakens. The fear of failure loosens. The fear of being misunderstood no longer controls your decisions. You start choosing alignment over approval. That is a divine upgrade. Discernment becomes sharper. You read energy more clearly. You sense intention without needing long explanations. You feel when something is off before evidence appears. This heightened intuition is not paranoia. It is spiritual sensitivity increasing. The spiritual awakening of the 144,000 chosen ones operates at a higher level, and with that elevation comes sharper perception. You may have noticed a sudden detachment from chaos. Drama that once entertained you now exhausts you. Arguments that once pulled you in now feel unnecessary. You are not becoming cold, you are becoming clear. When a spiritual shift occurs, confusion becomes heavy. Noise becomes irritating. You crave truth, depth, and alignment. That craving is not random. It is evidence of upgrade. A stronger sense of divine calling begins to surface. You feel pulled toward purpose, even if you cannot fully define it yet. You sense that your time, your words, your attention carry weight. You begin guarding your energy because you recognize its value. The 144,000 chosen ones are not being upgraded for comfort. They are being prepared for responsibility. Understand this clearly. This spiritual shift is energetic, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Energetically, your frequency changes. Mentally, your thoughts become more disciplined. Emotionally, your reactions stabilize. Spiritually, your awareness deepens. It is comprehensive. It touches every layer of who you are. Sometimes God's message does not arrive through comfort. It arrives through disruption. A relationship shifts unexpectedly. A door closes without warning. A season ends abruptly. You thought it was loss. It was redirection. You thought it was punishment. It was protection. The divine upgrade often begins with removal before it reveals elevation. Isolation can be part of this process. You may find yourself alone more often, not because you are unwanted, but because you are being refined. Noise must decrease for clarity to increase. When God isolates, He is not abandoning, He is aligning. The spiritual awakening of the 4,000 chosen ones requires focus, and focus requires space. Redirection can feel uncomfortable. Plans change, paths adjust, desires evolve, but beneath all of it, there is a quiet knowing that something larger is guiding you. That knowing is not imagination, it is confirmation. This is a message from God. You are not inventing this shift, you are experiencing it. The war is real. There is resistance because there is value. There is pressure because there is purpose. A divine upgrade does not go uncontested. Old patterns will try to pull you back. Familiar comfort will tempt you to shrink, but your spirit knows it cannot return to what it has outgrown. You thought you were losing people. You were losing limitations. The detachment you feel is not cruelty, it is clarity. The silence you are walking through is not emptiness, it is preparation. The stretching you have endured is not random pain, it is strengthening. The 144,000 chosen ones are undergoing a spiritual awakening at a higher level, and higher levels require higher discipline. Circle back to the truth. This is a message from God. You are not imagining this, you were called before doubt, before delay, before distraction. The divine calling on your life has always existed. Now it is intensifying. Your light is necessary, not decorative. Necessary. In a world saturated with confusion, your clarity matters. In a culture addicted to reaction, your regulation matters. In an atmosphere clouded by fear, your faith matters. Feel the empowerment rising. The divine upgrade is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming fully who you were designed to be. The spiritual shift is not breaking you, it is building you. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it, you were called. Signs you have received the divine upgrade. Chosen one. By now you may be asking the honest question, how do I know this divine upgrade is real? How do I know this spiritual shift is not just emotion or imagination? The answer is found in the evidence within you. The signs are not loud, but they are undeniable. They show up in your reactions, your desires, your boundaries, and your awareness. One of the first signs is sudden emotional maturity. Situations that once would have triggered you no longer control you. You pause before reacting. You observe before responding. You feel emotions deeply, but you are not ruled by them. That is not suppression. That is growth. The spiritual awakening of a chosen one produces stability. You begin choosing peace over proving a point. You begin valuing clarity over chaos. This is not you becoming passive. This is you becoming powerful in a different way. Another sign is the feeling of being spiritually set apart. You may feel different from the people around you. Conversations may feel shallow. Environments may feel draining. It is not arrogance. It is awareness. When the 144,000 chosen ones undergo a divine upgrade, alignment becomes more important than acceptance. You cannot unsee what you now see. You cannot unknow what you now know. Being set apart is not punishment. It is preparation connected to your divine calling. You may also notice increased sensitivity to negativity. Words carry more weight. Energy feels more noticeable. You sense tension quickly. This heightened awareness is not weakness, it is refinement. A spiritual shift sharpens perception. You begin protecting your peace because you recognize how easily distraction can dilute your focus. The war is real, and sensitivity is not fragility, it is strategic awareness. Clearer dreams may begin to surface. Intuitive downloads may feel stronger. Ideas come suddenly. Insight appears without long analysis. You may wake up with clarity about decisions that once confused you. This is part of the spiritual awakening process. The divine upgrade enhances your inner guidance system. You begin trusting what you sense because it consistently proves accurate. The chosen one identity includes discernment, and discernment grows stronger with elevation. Another undeniable sign is feeling guided away from old environments. Places you once enjoyed may now feel heavy. Habits you once defended may now feel misaligned. Friendships may shift without conflict. You simply outgrow certain frequencies. This is not betrayal. This is evolution. When your divine calling intensifies, your surroundings must adjust. You cannot carry a higher assignment while remaining anchored to lower patterns. You may also experience a quiet confidence replacing anxiety. The loud, restless need for validation begins to fade. You no longer feel the urge to explain yourself to everyone. You no longer chase approval the way you once did. Instead, there is an internal steadiness. You move with intention. You speak with clarity. You rest without guilt. This confidence is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is the result of the spiritual shift stabilizing your identity. There is also a growing desire for solitude without loneliness. You may crave time alone, not because you are hurt, but because you are focused. Silence becomes nourishing. Reflection becomes necessary. You are not isolating from pain. You are positioning for clarity. The 104,000 chosen ones often walk through seasons where separation strengthens them. Solitude becomes a sanctuary instead of a sentence. As these signs unfold, you might question yourself. You might wonder if you are becoming too different, too distant, too intense. But listen carefully. If this is happening to you, you are not breaking, you are upgrading. The discomfort you feel is expansion. The tension you sense is transition. The distance you experience is refinement. Circle back to the beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining this shift. You were called. The divine calling on your life requires capacity, and capacity requires growth. The war is real, which is why resistance appears when you rise. But your light is necessary. That is why you cannot remain small. You are not losing yourself. You are discovering yourself. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming clear. You are not withdrawing from the world. You are preparing to influence it differently. The spiritual awakening you are experiencing is not random emotion. It is structured transformation. Chosen one, recognize the pattern. Emotional maturity, spiritual separation, heightened discernment, clearer dreams, detachment from misaligned environments, quiet confidence, intentional solitude. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. The divine upgrade leaves evidence. The 144,000 chosen ones are being strengthened at a deeper level, not for applause, not for ego, but for impact. The spiritual shift is shaping you into someone who can carry weight without collapsing, someone who can see through illusion without becoming cynical, someone who can remain grounded while the world shakes. Feel the affirmation in this moment. You are not alone in this experience. Others are rising too. Others are sensing the shift. Others are responding to the same internal call. This God's message is confirmation, not persuasion. It is reminding you of what your spirit already knows. You were called before the doubt, before the delay, before the discouragement, and now the evidence is surfacing inside you. The war is real, the pressure is real, but so is your power, so is your purpose, so is your light, and your light is necessary. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it, you were called. Why the 144,000 are being activated now. Chosen one, timing matters. Nothing about this moment is random. The activation of the 144,000 chosen ones is not spiritual hype, it is response. Look at the world around you. There is tension in conversations, division in communities, confusion in leadership, and instability in systems people once trusted. This global chaos is not only social or political, it is spiritual pressure, and pressure always reveals what is strong and what is weak. Darkness intensifies before light emerges. That is a pattern as old as creation. When confusion spreads, clarity must rise. When fear multiplies, faith must strengthen. When noise overwhelms, discernment must sharpen. The spiritual shift happening now is not accidental, it is strategic. The 144,000 chosen ones are being activated because stabilization is needed. You have felt this pressure personally, the heaviness in the atmosphere, the sense that something is changing beneath the surface, the awareness that the world is accelerating. That sensation is not imagination, it is perception. A collective spiritual awakening is unfolding, and those who are sensitive can feel it. This divine upgrade is preparation for leadership, but not the kind defined by ego or spotlight. It is leadership rooted in responsibility. It is influence carried with humility. It is authority expressed through service. This is not ego elevation, this is service alignment. The chosen one identity is not about being superior, it is about being accountable. When chaos increases, stabilizers must rise. The 144,000 chosen ones are not being upgraded for applause. They are being strengthened to remain steady when others panic, to speak calmly when others shout, to discern truth when misinformation spreads. This is why your nervous system has been recalibrating. This is why your emotional maturity has been deepening. This is why your discernment has sharpened. Divine timing is precise. It does not rush, and it does not delay. The activation you are experiencing is aligned with a larger plan. Divine alignment means your internal growth matches an external need. You are not being upgraded in isolation. You are being positioned for impact. The spiritual awakening taking place at a collective level requires individuals who can hold clarity without becoming rigid, compassion without becoming compromised, strength without becoming harsh. That is why the divine upgrade is internal first, character before platform, integrity before visibility. Understand this clearly. God does not upgrade you for comfort. He upgrades you for assignment. Comfort maintains, assignment stretches. Comfort keeps you safe. Assignment makes you necessary. The war is real, and assignments are given in response to battles. There is a reason resistance has increased. There is a reason distractions have intensified. When activation is near, opposition rises, not because you are weak, but because you are valuable. The 144,000 chosen ones are being refined precisely because the hour demands refinement. Global chaos creates opportunity for clarity. Darkness intensifies to test whether light will retreat or expand. And your light is not decorative, it is essential. The divine calling on your life was not designed for calm seasons alone. It was designed for pivotal moments. You may not see the full picture yet. You may not understand every detail of your role, but the internal shift confirms the external timing. The spiritual shift within you mirrors the shift around you. That is alignment. This is not about claiming titles. It is about embodying responsibility. The divine upgrade is equipping you to lead yourself first, to discipline your thoughts, to regulate your emotions, to guard your energy. Leadership begins within, before it influences without. The collective spiritual awakening requires grounded individuals, not extremists, not ego-driven personalities, but balanced, aware, spiritually mature chosen ones who understand the weight of their influence. That is why your growth has been intense. That is why your isolation was necessary. That is why your refinement felt uncomfortable. Circle back to the truth. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the shift you feel. You were called long before this season arrived, and now the season has caught up to your preparation. The war is real. The tension is real. The shaking is real. But so is your activation. So is your upgrade. So is your assignment. The 144,000 chosen ones are rising not to dominate, but to stabilize, not to boast, but to build. Not to escape the world, but to influence it. Feel the boldness in this moment. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. Divine timing has positioned you exactly where you need to be. Your light is necessary in conversations, in decisions, in environments, in leadership. Necessary. God does not upgrade you for comfort. He upgrades you for assignment. This is a message from God. You were called. The resistance was confirmation. The pressure was preparation. The activation is now. If this touched your soul, comment 111. Because you know it, you were called. The isolation phase before the elevation. Chosen one. There is a part of this journey that few people talk about honestly. It is the isolation phase before the elevation. It is the quiet season where invitations decrease, conversations shift, and familiar connections feel distant. It is the stretch where loneliness tries to convince you that you are forgotten. But this phase is not abandonment, it is alignment. Many chosen ones feel alone because growth changes frequency. When your spiritual awakening deepens, your priorities adjust. What once entertained you may now exhaust you. What once felt normal may now feel misaligned. The shift is internal first, and not everyone around you will understand it. That misunderstanding can feel isolating. Relationships often dissolve during a spiritual shift, not because someone is evil, but because alignment has changed. Some connections were built around old versions of you. When you evolve, those foundations no longer hold. Conversations become strained, interests diverge, energy feels forced. It is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet, drifting, but the result is the same, space. This space can feel painful. You may question yourself. You may wonder if you are becoming too intense, too distant, too different, but the truth is simpler. The divine calling on your life requires refinement. Refinement requires focus, and focus requires fewer distractions. Misunderstanding increases during this season because not everyone can perceive what you are perceiving. When your discernment sharpens, your tolerance for superficiality decreases. When your purpose clarifies, your willingness to compromise weakens. People may interpret your boundaries as pride. They may interpret your silence as rejection, but you are not rejecting people, you are protecting alignment. The spiritual awakening process is not always glamorous. It often feels like subtraction before addition. It feels like pruning before growth. It feels like silence before instruction. You may sit in rooms and feel unseen. You may scroll through messages and feel disconnected. You may look around and realize that very few people truly understand what you are becoming. But understand this clearly. Isolation is not punishment. It is training. God will remove noise before He amplifies your voice. Noise distorts clarity. Noise weakens discipline. Noise delays direction. When the 144,000 chosen ones undergo a divine upgrade, the first adjustment is often relational. This does not mean you will walk alone forever. It means you are being strengthened internally so that when elevation comes, you can carry it without collapsing. Elevation without preparation creates instability. Isolation builds endurance. During this phase, you learn to sit with yourself. You learn to regulate your emotions without constant reassurance. You learn to trust your intuition without external validation. You learn to hear God's message without competing voices. These are not small lessons. They are foundational. The war is real, and every leader is tested in private before being trusted in public. The loneliness you feel is shaping resilience. The silence you endure is sharpening discernment. The separation you experience is strengthening identity. Chosen one, you are not being excluded. You are being refined. You are not being overlooked. You are being prepared. The divine calling does not operate on popularity. It operates on purity. And purity often requires distance from what once felt comfortable. Encourage your heart in this season. Endure without bitterness. Trust without panic. The spiritual shift you are walking through is strategic. The isolation is temporary, but the strength it produces is lasting. Circle back to the beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the distance you feel. You were called. The refinement confirms it. The pressure confirms it. The separation confirms it. Your light is necessary. That is why it must be protected before it is displayed. That is why it must be strengthened before it is expanded. That is why it must be disciplined before it is directed outward. The war is real, but so is your preparation. So is your upgrade. So is your assignment. If this touched your soul, comment 111, because you know it, you were called. What this spiritual shift requires from you, chosen one, elevation always comes with responsibility. A divine upgrade is not something you simply receive and ignore. It is something you steward. This spiritual shift requires participation. It requires discipline. It requires awareness. You cannot carry a higher frequency with lower habits. The first requirement is discipline of thought. Your mind is the gateway. What you repeatedly think becomes what you repeatedly feel, and what you repeatedly feel becomes how you repeatedly act. If your thoughts are chaotic, your life will mirror that chaos. If your thoughts are focused, your direction becomes clearer. The 144,000 chosen ones cannot afford mental laziness. You must guard what you allow to circulate in your mind. Fear cannot be entertained for long. Doubt cannot be rehearsed daily. Negativity cannot become normal. This does not mean suppressing emotions. It means mastering them. Emotional regulation is another requirement of this spiritual awakening. You will feel deeply, but you must not be ruled impulsively. The war is real, and emotional instability is one of the easiest ways to be distracted from your divine calling. When you regulate your emotions, you create space between stimulus and response. In that space, wisdom operates. Guarding your energy is not arrogance, it is stewardship. Not every conversation deserves your vulnerability. Not every environment deserves your presence. Not every opinion deserves your reaction. A divine upgrade increases sensitivity, and with that sensitivity comes responsibility. You must learn when to engage and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to correct and when to observe. Strengthening spiritual habits becomes essential. Daily awareness cannot be optional. Reflection must be consistent. Prayer must be intentional. Stillness must be practiced. The spiritual shift you are walking through will weaken if you neglect the practices that sustain it. Growth requires repetition. Discipline creates stability. Alignment with your divine calling demands focus. Distractions will increase as clarity increases. Old habits may attempt to return. Familiar comforts may try to pull you backward. But you cannot downgrade your standards to match old environments. You have seen too much. You have grown too much. The 104,000 chosen ones are being trained to remain steady under pressure. Not everyone can carry this frequency. Not everyone is willing to confront their own patterns. Not everyone wants to regulate their emotions or discipline their thoughts. That is why this path feels narrow. That is why your circle may feel smaller. Spiritual cleanliness is not about perfection. It is about intention. It is about daily correction. It is about staying aware of your motives and adjusting when necessary. Mental focus becomes protection. When you are clear about your assignment, you are less likely to be distracted by comparison. When you are grounded in your identity, you are less likely to chase validation. When you are disciplined in thought, you are less likely to entertain narratives that weaken your confidence. The divine upgrade is not fragile, but it can be neglected. Stewardship means tending to what has been given. You must check your spirit regularly. You must ask yourself if your actions align with your calling. You must evaluate whether your habits strengthen or weaken your clarity. Daily spiritual awareness does not require dramatic rituals. It requires consistency, a moment of reflection, a moment of gratitude, a moment of recalibration. The spiritual awakening of the 144,000 chosen ones is sustained through small, faithful decisions repeated over time. Circle back to the beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the responsibility you feel. You were called, and calling requires character. Calling requires discipline. Calling requires alignment. The war is real, and unfocused minds are easy targets. But a disciplined spirit is steady. A regulated heart is resilient. A guarded energy is protected. Your light is necessary. That is why it must be maintained. That is why it must be protected. That is why it must be strengthened daily. You are not being asked to be perfect. You are being asked to be intentional. You are not being pressured to be flawless. You are being invited to be focused. This divine upgrade is evidence of trust. You were trusted with growth. You were trusted with awareness. You were trusted with clarity. If this touched your soul, comment 111 because you know it. You were called. The warning: do not downgrade yourself. Chosen one, now comes the warning. Growth is real, but so is regression. A divine upgrade can be resisted, not by losing it overnight, but by slowly neglecting it, by drifting back into patterns that once felt normal, by entertaining thoughts that once kept you small, by revisiting environments that no longer match your elevation. Old habits will try to return. They will not announce themselves loudly. They will appear subtly, disguised as comfort. The urge to overreact, the temptation to gossip, the pull toward distraction, the desire to seek validation from people who never truly valued your alignment. These patterns feel familiar, and familiarity can feel safe, but safe is not always aligned. Familiar toxicity can feel comfortable because you survived in it before. You learned how to navigate it. You understood its rules. But surviving is not the same as thriving. When the spiritual awakening deepens, your tolerance for dysfunction decreases. If you return to old environments, you will feel the misalignment immediately. That discomfort is not weakness, it is wisdom. Doubt will attempt to creep in quietly. You may question whether the spiritual shift was real. You may wonder if you imagined the clarity, the peace, the activation. You may hear internal whispers asking if you are overestimating your calling. That is part of the war. The battle is not only external, it is internal. Understand this clearly. Resistance does not mean the divine upgrade was false. It means it was valuable. The more significant the growth, the stronger the temptation to retreat. Growth requires responsibility. Retreat requires nothing. Do not shrink to fit spaces you have outgrown. Read that again internally. Do not shrink to fit spaces you have outgrown. You have matured emotionally. You have sharpened spiritually. You have clarified mentally. Returning to smaller patterns will feel suffocating. The chosen one identity cannot breathe in confined environments. A divine upgrade increases capacity, but it also increases accountability. You now see what you once ignored. You now discern what you once tolerated. You now feel what you once dismissed. To downgrade yourself would mean pretending not to know what you know, and you cannot unknow awareness. The spiritual awakening you are walking through demands courage. Courage to say no. Courage to walk away. Courage to remain silent when silence is wiser than argument. Courage to stand firm when misunderstanding increases. This is not ego. This is alignment with your divine calling. You are responsible for protecting your growth, not defensively, but intentionally. Guard your progress. Guard your peace. Guard your discipline. Not everyone will understand your boundaries. Not everyone will celebrate your evolution. Some may even prefer the older, less aware version of you because it was easier to influence. But you are not here to be easy. You are here to be effective. Circle back to the beginning. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the shift that happened within you. You were called before the doubt. You were chosen before the distraction. The war is real, and shrinking is one of its strategies. Your light is necessary. Necessary means it cannot be dimmed for comfort. Necessary means it cannot be negotiated for approval. Necessary means it must remain steady even when pressure increases. The 144,000 chosen ones are not upgraded for decoration. They are strengthened for impact. Do not downgrade your discipline. Do not downgrade your standards. Do not downgrade your awareness. Stand firm in who you are becoming. Stand grounded in your spiritual awakening. Stand aligned with your divine calling. If this touched your soul, comment 101 bon, because you know it, you were called. Final confirmation and activation prayer. Chosen one, this is your final confirmation, and it carries weight. The divine upgrade was not symbolic language meant to inspire you emotionally for a moment. It was a real internal restructuring, something recalibrated inside you. Your tolerance shifted, your clarity sharpened, your emotional responses stabilized, your discernment deepened. The spiritual shift was not imagination, it was transformation. The activation of the 144,000 chosen ones is happening in layers, quietly, strategically, without spectacle. You may not see headlines announcing it, but you feel the evidence within yourself. The old version of you cannot operate the way it once did. The old patterns feel foreign. The old fears feel weaker. That is confirmation. This God's message found you in divine alignment, not because you were scrolling, not because you were curious, but because something in your spirit recognized truth when it heard it. Timing aligned with readiness. Readiness met revelation, and revelation produced activation. You have walked through isolation. You have walked through refinement. You have walked through misunderstanding, and through it all, something inside you refused to collapse. That resilience was not random, it was preparation. The divine upgrade strengthened your foundation so that elevation would not destabilize you. The spiritual shift required discipline, it required surrender, it required awareness, and you responded, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it was lonely, even when you questioned what was happening, you continued. Now receive this activation prayer not as poetry, but as positioning. May your thoughts remain disciplined when doubt attempts to infiltrate your focus. May your emotions remain regulated when pressure tries to provoke reaction. May your spirit remain sensitive to truth and resistant to deception. May your steps remain aligned with your divine calling, even when the path feels narrow. May your courage increase in proportion to your assignment. May you remember that you were chosen before you were challenged. May you remember that you were prepared before you were positioned. May you remember that your light was designed to shine in environments that feel unstable. The war is real. Not dramatic, not theatrical, but real. A battle for attention, a battle for discipline, a battle for identity. But you are not unarmed. You are upgraded. You are aware. You are aligned. The 144,000 chosen ones are not rising in arrogance. They are rising in responsibility. They are rising in service. They are rising in clarity. And you are part of that number because you responded to growth instead of retreating into comfort. Circle back to the beginning one last time. This is a message from God. You are not imagining the shift. You are not exaggerating the calling. You are not misreading the pressure. You were called, and calling always attracts refinement. Your light is necessary. Necessary means essential. Necessary means intentional. Necessary means irreplaceable in your sphere of influence. Someone benefits from your discipline. Someone benefits from your clarity. Someone benefits from your restraint. Someone benefits from your obedience to alignment. If this confirmed what your spirit already knew, comment 777 below. Let it seal the agreement between your awareness and your action. Let it mark the moment you decided not to shrink, not to retreat, not to downgrade yourself. Stand firm in your upgrade. Stay steady in your spiritual awakening. Guard your alignment. Protect your discipline. Continue refining your heart and focusing your mind. You are not imagining this shift. You are becoming who you were called to be. And if this touched your soul, comment a 111. Because you know it, you were called.